It's Rishi once again. Thank you very much for joining us for another episode on Python programming. In today's video, we will be going through functions. So what are functions? Functions are named blocks of code that are designed to do one specific job. Now, when you want to perform a particular task that you've defined in a function, you call the name of that function responsible for it. And if you need to perform the task multiple times throughout your program, you don't need to type all of the code for the same task again and again. You just call that function that is dedicated to handling that task. And that call simply tells Python to run the code inside that function. And you'll find that using functions makes your program easier to write, to read, test, and even fix. So in this chapter, you'll learn ways to pass information to functions. And you'll learn how to write certain functions whose primary job is to display information and other functions designed to process data and return a value or even a set of values. And then finally, you'll learn to store functions in separate files called modules to help organize your main program files. Fantastic. And let's dive into it right away. So the first thing I'm going to do is simply go ahead and create a new file and name this functions.py. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a new file and name this chapter 7 solutions. Brilliant. We can close this off for now. And let's get coding. So let's go ahead and show you a simple example. And I'm going to create a function which is named greetUser that prints a greeting. So the first thing I've gone ahead and done is use the keyword definition. For short, it is DEF. And this informs Python that we are defining a function. I'm just telling Python the name of the function, which is greet_user, and if applicable, what kind of information the function needs to do its job. And so the parentheses holds that information. So now in this case, the name of the function is greetUser, and it needs no information to do its job. So its parentheses are empty. And then finally, the definition ends with a colon. And again, any indented lines, as you can see here, that follow def greetUser make up the body of the function. And let's now go ahead and put our document string, and we'll write a short message, which is to display a simple greeting. We'll then go ahead and print a statement. And once again, the docstring on line 4 simply just describes what the function does. And docstrings are enclosed in triple quotes, which Python looks for when it generates documentation for the functions in your programs. And then line 5, print hello. That is the only line of actual code in the body of the function. So greetUser has just one job, and that is to print hello. And when you want to use this function, you can call it. And a function call tells Python to execute the code in the function. So to call a function, you write the name of the function, followed by any necessary information. So we'll go ahead and call greetUser, and then that necessary information would be within the parentheses. But because no information is needed here, calling our function is as simple as entering greetUser. So let's go ahead and run this code. And you can now see we get hello being printed out. So it's as simple as that. Declaring your function and then displaying your docstring before going ahead and entering in your block of code and then executing the code by calling the function. So let's now modify this slightly. Let's pass information to that function. So currently the function greetUser can not only tell the user hello, but also greet them by name. So for the function to do this, you enter username in the parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this below here. And I will just comment this out. Okay, so let's go ahead and enter username within the parentheses here. And you can see it's grayed out at the moment because it is not being used, or as it says, username is not accessed. So for the function to do this, we've entered the username in the parentheses of the function's definition. And now by adding username here, you are allowing the function to accept any value of username that you specify. And so now the function expects you to provide a value for username each time you call it. So within our print statement here, let's go ahead and make some changes. And let's go for username.title. And then within my greets users, I'm going to simply enter in my username, which is going to be Rishi. So now entering greet user Rishi calls greet user and gives the function the information it needs in order to execute the print statement. So the function accepts the name that we've passed, and now it's going to display it. We go ahead and run this. And there we are. You can now see it states hello Rishi. And now likewise, entering greet user Sarah would also call greet user and passes Sarah and prints hello Sarah. So we can go ahead and simply copy and paste this below, and let's go for Sarah. And then let's go ahead and run this. And there we are. You can now see it's stating hello Sarah. So you can call greet user as often as you want and pass it any name you want to produce a predictable output every time. And let's now think about arguments and parameters. So in the preceding function, we defined greet user to require a value for the variable username. And once we called the function and gave it the information, which was a person's name, it printed the right greeting. And now the variable username in the definition is an example of a parameter. So this would be seen as your parameter. And even if we hover over it, you can now see it's called a parameter. And then the value Rishi or Sarah is an example of an argument. And an argument is a piece of information that is passed from a function call to a function. And when we call the function, we simply place the value we want the function to work with in parentheses. So in this case, the argument Rishi was passed to the function greet user, and the value was stored in the parameter username. And people sometimes speak of arguments and parameters interchangeably. So don't be surprised if you see the variables in a function definition referred to as an argument, or the variables in a function call referred to as parameters. So following this example, I now have two programs that I would like you to complete. So feel free to pause the video now and then go ahead and attempt them. And then press play when you're ready to go through the solutions with myself. Welcome back. Let's now go through the two programs. So let's dive into our Chapter 7 solutions, and let's dive into the first program here. So this is where we need to write a function called display message that prints one sentence telling everyone what you're learning about in this chapter. And then we need to go ahead and call that message. So let's go ahead and define our function, and let's call it display message. We'll then go ahead and follow this through with our doc string, and we'll enter in what this function will be doing. Before entering a variable, we'll call it message, and we'll say that I'm learning how to store code in functions. Before printing out message, and then going ahead and calling that function. And that's again outside of the body. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and run this. And you can now see we're getting our output. I'm learning how to store code in functions. Let's now dive into the second program here. And again, we need to write a function called favorite book that accepts one parameter, title. So let's go ahead and define our favorite book. And this time we're going to define a parameter, which is title. We are then going to get our doc string, and we're going to simply write what our program is going to be doing here. Before declaring a variable, and again, the function should print a message such as one of my favorite books is Alice in Wonderland. Before simply printing out our statement, and again, I'll be using the F format method. I'll encapsulate my parameter within this, followed by a message. And remember here, we are not putting in our favorite book within our print statement, but we are going to be calling this at the end of our block here. And then we'll go ahead and call our program, and then in the parentheses, we can put in The Great Gatsby. It's definitely a good novel for you guys to read. Okay, and let's go ahead and print this out. And there we are. The Great Gatsby is one of my favorite books. I hope that gave you a clear insight on how we can simply work with functions, printing out a function both with a parameter and one without. Let's now jump back into our functions file, where we will now be focusing on passing arguments. And now, because a function definition can have multiple parameters, a function call may need multiple arguments. And so you can pass arguments to your functions in a number of different ways. And these are called positional arguments. And they just need to be in the same order the parameters were written in, which are seen as our keyword arguments, where each argument consists of a variable name and a value, as well as your lists and dictionaries of values. So let's look at each one of these in turn. Let's start off with our positional arguments. And now, as I mentioned, Python must match each argument in the function call with the parameter in the function definition. So the simplest way that we're going to do this is simply to base the order of the arguments provided. And that way your values will match up this way, which are then going to be called your positional arguments. So let's consider a function here that displays information about pets. So let's go ahead and define our function, and we'll call it describe pet. And then we'll put in two parameters, one which is animal type, followed by pet's name. We'll then go ahead and put our docstring, and we'll display information about a pet before simply printing out a message. And we'll do another print statement here, and we'll say my animal type's name is the pet name. And again, we're using our double brackets here as we are using an apostrophe, so we don't fall into an error. And then we'll go for pet name dot title, and then we'll go ahead and call our function. And then within this, I would put my arguments, one which will be a dog for my animal type, and then the name will go for is Millie. Let's now go ahead and run this. And we can now see I have a dog, and my dog's name is Millie. So if we take a deeper dive into this, and when we call describe pet, we need to provide an animal type as well as an animal name. And for example, the function call has an argument which is dog, and that is stored in the parameter animal type, and then Millie, which is another argument stored in the parameter pet name. And so the output describes a dog named Millie. That was your positional arguments. Now let's see if we can carry out multiple function calls. So now you can call a function as many times as needed. And let's go ahead and describe a second different pet that requires just one more call to describe a pet. So let's go ahead and call our function here, describe pet. And this time I'll go for hamster, and I'll go for Zion. And then again, I can go ahead and run this. And you can now see we're getting, I have a hamster and my hamster's name is Zion. So in this second function call, we pass describe pet and the arguments hamster and Zion, as with the previous set of arguments, dog and Millie. So Python matches hamster with our animal type and Zion with our pet name. And as before, the function does its job, but this time it prints values for a hamster named Zion. And so calling a function multiple times is a very efficient way to work. The code describing a pet is written once in the function, and then anytime you want to describe a new pet, you call that function with the new pet's information. And so even if the code for describing a pet were to expand to 10 lines, you could still go ahead and describe a new pet in just one line by calling this function again. And you can use as many positional arguments as you need to. Python works through the arguments that you provide when calling the functions and then matches each one with the corresponding parameter. However, order matters in positional arguments. You can get unexpected results if you mix up the order of the arguments in a function call when using positional arguments. And let's take this as an example here. So I'm going to go ahead and just call this function again. So let's go for describe pet, but this time I'm going to put in the pet name first, followed by the animal type. So let's go for Leo as our name and a cat as our animal type. And let's go ahead and run this. And you can now see I have a Leo. My Leo's name is cat. So what's happened here? So in this function call, we list the name first and then the type of animal second. And because the argument Leo is listed first this time, the value is stored in the parameter of animal type. And so likewise, Leo is stored in our animal type and our cat is stored in our pet name. So if you get funny results like this, check to make sure that the order of the arguments in your function call matches the order of the parameters in the function's definition. And this brings me over to the final part of this video, and that is keyword arguments. Now, a keyword argument is typically a name-value pair that you pass to a function. Now, you directly associate that name and the value within the argument. So when you pass the argument to the function, there's no confusion, and you won't end up with a Leo named cat. And keyword arguments free you from having to worry about correctly ordering your arguments in the function call, and they clarify the role of each value in the function call. So let's go ahead and rewrite our pets program using keyword arguments to call described pet. So what I'm going to simply do is go ahead and follow through with the same program that I have here from lines 24 to 27. I'm just going to comment out this code here, and let's now begin. So let's call our function describe pet, and in here I'm now going to set my default parameter animal type to cat, followed by my pet underscore name and Leo. So let's go ahead and run this, and you can now see I have a cat and my cat's name is Leo. So the function describe pet hasn't changed, but when we call the function, we explicitly tell Python which parameter each argument should be matched with. And when Python reads the function call, it knows to store the argument cat in animal type and the argument Leo in pet name. And so the output correctly shows that we have a cat named Leo. And the order of keyword arguments doesn't matter because Python knows where each value should go because we've defined them clearly with our equal sign. And so if I go ahead and call the function one more time, and this time change it to pet name equals Leo and animal type equals cat, this will be absolutely equivalent. And let's go ahead and run this, and you can now see I have a cat and my cat's name is Leo. And it doesn't matter, as despite changing the position of the argument, I am still getting the same result. So when you use keyword arguments, be sure to use the exact names of the parameters in the function's definition. Amazing. And that brings us to the end of our first video on functions. I hope this was super useful, and I hope it was clear as to how we can use our positional arguments, keyword arguments, and going through all of the different ways that we could order these arguments within our multiple function calls to ensure we are getting the output that is expected. In this video, you had an insight into arguments and parameters. You ran your first set of programs where you were passing information to a function. And I hope you were able to see how you can use functions to make your programs easier to write, read, test, and fix. So in our next section, we will be diving through argument errors and how we can avoid those, return values, making arguments optional, and as well as working with dictionaries and lists. So click the video that you see on your screen now, and you will be able to dive into our second part of our functions chapter.